I just remember not expecting that sort of an impact when it happened. The gravity of loss, whoa, it like woke me up to this thing that I used to like not even think about.
Did you make any conclusions about life? Because that little girl, the little you, made conclusions about life, and you want to go back and help her as an adult.
Get back in there.
No, come out. It's okay. This is what healing feels like.
It made me reflect on the earlier times of grief. Like I keep just pushing it.
Allow that sadness. That sadness that I see in your eyes is love.
Oh.
When did your childhood end?
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ease. Today we're having a conversation with David Kessler. David is a grief and trauma specialist. David, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Well, yay. We're so happy to have you here today.
I know, thank you so much for doing this.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you.
No,
we're so excited.
Yeah, we were really excited this whole week. The past couple of months.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here and taking the time out of your day.
Of course.
Yeah. Could you tell us more and our audience more about how you got into teaching others grief?
Grief work, yeah.
Grief work.
You know, it's a strange thing because I think about, I didn't choose this profession.
Yeah.
In a weird way, it chose me. I just had a challenging childhood. My mother was ill and I didn't know she was dying, but she was dying at the time. And we had to go to the big hospital where they had a treatment she was going to try. And while we were there, we were at a hotel across the street. And one day they started yelling, "Fire!" And we all ran out. And on the 18th floor, I looked up and flames are coming out. And all of a sudden, fire trucks and ladders. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. And, you know, just to watch like, oh, it's like watching a movie. And then all of a sudden, shots started. And they realized this isn't just a fire. This is an active shooter. And it went on for hours. And it turned out to be one of the first mass shootings in the U.S.
Oh, whoa.
So I saw, you know, all of a sudden I'm watching people die. And my father's desperately trying to get us back to the hospital. And we finally get back there. And then in a few days, my mother dies. So it was like a lot of grief and trauma. And the strange thing is, and I bet people can identify with this, because I was so young, I thought like I'm the only person who's ever had a mother die. Like I hadn't met other people. Back then there weren't like people on TV with people dying. And so I'm like, wow, I'm really screwed up. Yeah. And dropped out of high school and was really lost. And then eventually went back and challenged my high school and went to community college. And someone said to me, there's two easy classes, human sexuality, and the other one's death and dying. And then someone went, human sexuality's full.
Oh my God.
And I went, okay, I'll take the death and dying class. I was shocked there was one that was on death and dying.
Yeah.
And like all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, there's words, there's language. I can talk about like what I've been through. And then I met other people who had people die, and it changed everything.
Yeah.
And so that really began my own healing and to try to learn about this field and help others and kind of try to be the person for other people that I wish would have been there for me.
How did you know after all of that happened to you that you wanted to dedicate your life to helping others?
Well, I knew how broken and destroyed I felt, and I really was hopeless. And when I found hope, I'm like I got a secret, and I want to tell people that like no matter what the grief or trauma you've been through, there's still hope.
Yeah. How did you find your hope? I mean, it probably took years, but
I think, first of all, I had to figure out what healing looked like. To me, healing means what happened to you doesn't control you anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to find happiness again and help other people do that.
That's amazing.
And I also had a long period of time in my 20s where I saw the effects of trauma and grief. I saw how abandoned I felt and how every relationship I would explode it because I was like trying to recreate the trauma and the abandonment and, try to get someone to stay and choose really bad people. And I kind of learned how we think grief and trauma are sort of these horrible events that make you sit in a corner and cry. And we don't understand how they affect our relationships and how they affect everything about us.
Totally.
I think a lot of us can relate to like wanting to stick with people that we felt was bad for us, or like having to stay in certain situations because we were comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you okay with sharing? Like, what's been your experience with grief and loss and heartbreak and
Yeah.
made you open to having this conversation?
Well, I did want to say, you think of grief, you think of trauma, and I feel like off the bat, I kind of just feel like sad. Like I'm like, oh, this is like a sad subject. But
And people think it's only about death.
yeah.
And there's lots of different grief and losses that we go through.
And I'm hoping that through this episode, we can kind of, find some light in it and some levity so that it doesn't have to be this like overwhelming, conversation. Because I feel like a lot of people maybe steer away from it and like don't want to talk about it because they're like, oh, that's overwhelming. How do I even start? How do I talk to my friends about this feeling that I'm having?
And we have to talk about it to heal it. You can't heal what you don't feel, and we have to be able to share.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So many studies and things have shown us that horrible events and things that happen and ways people hurt us cause the pain.
Mhm.
And the only way to heal it is with other people.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to heal it with the people who caused the pain.
Yeah.
But just other people can do that healing and repair work.
I think the experiences that I've had with grief and dealing with loss of, like you said, I think loss can be many different things. It could be like relationships, people, homes.
Right.
I think my personal experience with grief has kind of been on a smaller scale. It felt so small in comparison to like the things that people deal with on a day-to-day, or like the experiences that even you just shared. But I think the very first time losing someone / something that was really close to me was when I was little, and it was losing my childhood pet. That was like the very first experience I had as a young girl, feeling like I had lost something that I wasn't ready to lose. I'm an only child, so like I was very, very attached to my pets, or like I get really attached to my friends because they're like family to me.
I want to invite you to see it differently. I'm a big believer. People always ask me, which loss is the worst? Is it, a breakup, a relationship, where the person's still in the world and rejecting you every day? Is it pet loss that's your unconditional love? Is it a person? Is it a betrayal where the trust feels like it's died? Is it, a narcissist that feel like you died? All these losses. And my answer is always, the worst loss is yours. Try not to compare. Like even when you said, mine is a small loss, I thought, I bet it wasn't to that little girl, when you were young.
Yeah.
I bet she didn't think it was a small loss.
Yeah.
So, you know,
That's true.
We can easily judge our own losses in comparison, and there's really no comparison.
Yeah.
Your loss is your worst one, whatever it is.
I think that's really helpful to hear, especially for our audience and young people. I think you see what's going on in the world and you're like, what I'm going through doesn't really compare to that.
But it doesn't play out that way in our own mind. I mean, I can even remember after, my mother dying and going through a shooting, whenever I was dealing with a breakup, I wasn't like, oh, well, this doesn't count. I had a shooting and I had a mother dying. I was like, this is horrible. This is breakups. It was like, it was the worst.
Yeah.
In that moment, it was my worst pain.
I feel like it pulls on your heart a little bit in different ways, and you don't know, like every pain is different, and grief doesn't always have to look like you're just like crying,
Right.
sobbing on the floor.
It can look like anger.
Yeah.
It can look like a lot of things. And, I think I always say about pet loss, if the love is real, the grief is real. And that was love.
Yeah.
That was love.
The smaller griefs aren't considered like small at all.
Absolutely. And whenever people say like this small grief or this is insignificant, I'm like, not to you.
Is that something that you talk about with the people that you talk to or share these stories with?
I try to do two things always. I want to validate their pain and what they've been through. And at the same time, I also want to validate their capacity for healing. We go through these dark nights. And look, we're a society that's all about climb every mountain, take on the peaks. And yet we have to walk through the valleys too.
Yeah.
And anyone who's had a pet die or a horrible breakup or a betrayal or a loved one dying or a job loss or just in a horrible relationship, they've now been thrown into the valley.
Yeah.
And you got to walk through the valley.
I think what I was getting to with like the loss of my childhood pet, I just remember not expecting that sort of an impact when it happened. I think that was like the biggest thing, realizing like the gravity of loss. That was something that I was like, oh, whoa, it like woke me up to this thing that I used to like not even think about. And I think that kind of was almost like the closing of a chapter in my life. It felt like that was me closing the chapter on my childhood a little bit, because my childhood pet had passed, and like me being a little girl growing up with that dog, I really felt like all of those memories were poured into her. So when she passed, I kind of felt like a little part of my childhood kind of.
That's interesting you say that, because one of the questions that I sometimes will ask people is, when did your childhood end? And people will often talk about it was when they first experienced something, some loss or trauma. And, all of a sudden, that innocent, sweet childhood was over.
Yeah.
Can I ask your pet's name?
Yes. Manzanita
Okay.
was her name.
There is a loneliness that will be in this world because Manzanita will never exist again. One and only in this time. And so it is to do that grief work, to allow those feelings to come up, and to trust, and really do not let your mind go, oh, this is so small, I don't know why it's still coming up. Allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Allow that sadness. That sadness that I see in your eyes is love.
Oh.
It's love.
You just have a really beautiful way of like speaking, the way that your words are so powerful. I heard a quote somewhere: grief is love with nowhere to go.
I know that quote, and I actually don't agree with it.
Really? Okay.
It's a blockage, like you can't love your doggy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that. I believe you still get to love it. I believe every time you remember it, you love it.
Yeah.
So I believe that love continues. I believe love can't die.
Reflecting off of Nye, it just reminds me, the first thought I had was like thinking about my parents' divorce. And I was thinking about it a lot because one day someone came up to me and they're like, "How often do you think about your parents' divorce?" And I was like, I don't think about it." And then I was like, low key, wait, every day.
All the time.
Every day. It's when like just like the small moments of like having to like text your parents separately, not in the same group chat, or like having to go to different holidays together. But yeah, it's just that I never really thought of it as a grief.
So if I asked the question, when did your childhood end? Would you think it would be when the divorce
I
happened?
think so. I realized that too after once you said that tonight. I was like, oh, it's probably.
I know. And I'm curious, how old were you when that happened?
I was really young. They never really, the thing about them is that they never really like said when they got a divorce. It was kind of like they were separated our whole lives, and then when we were in high school, they like really divorced legally. But when everything was going on, I was in third grade. So I was really, really young. And I think that's the start of when like they really, when they were separated. I feel like it is like a quiet grief, something that lingers and you feel, and it's kind of like normalized.
What did that do to you, to that little third grader?
I think I was mainly confused at the beginning of it, of everything. Like I felt like I had to step up and be an adult in certain situations.
When parents and adults don't take responsibility, the children take on the responsibility. When they don't say, here's what's happening, and it's not about you, and we're on it, and you are taken care of, you are left in this confusion, which makes you feel like, what have I done? What's going on? What's my world? One of the things I think about, I often tell the story of a young girl and her parents were divorcing and her dad was moving out. As her dad was packing things up, she went behind him from room to room and kept walking with him. Then he got in the car to drive away. And she said, do you know how in the movies or in a book you would see that dad turn around and go, don't you worry, Daddy's coming back for you. She said he got in the car and he never looked back. Here's what I teach about this. There's the event that happens and the conclusion we make and the belief we grow into. So for her, the event was Dad didn't look back because no one was there to go, oh my gosh, your dad was in such a weird place. It had nothing to do with you. This divorce has nothing to do with you. She made the conclusion, I'm not worth a look back. And that became this pattern in this belief system she had of I'm not good enough. No man will ever stay with me. Did you make any conclusions about life? Because that little girl, the little you, made conclusions about life, and you want to go back and help her as an adult.
Oh my gosh.
Understand it.
Period. Get back in there.
No, come out. No, don't come back in there. It's okay. This is what healing feels like. This is what healing looks like when we feel these things. I always, there's a saying Joseph Campbell has about the cave we fear entering. The cave we don't want to go into is the one we need to go into. That little girl's knocking on your door going, I want healing.
Oh,
Talk to me. I want healing.
honestly, that helps me a lot because I feel like I avoid my like grieving. For me, I feel like the emotions that come up are just so heavy that I don't want to experience it. People listening right now are at least getting comfortable with the idea of seeing what they're going through and just being able to express that. And hopefully they can talk about it with someone else too.
And you're modeling that by going to the uncomfortable places.
For most of my grief, it did stem from like my parents' divorce. But I recently did have a friend that passed away in December, and I realized that a lot of the grief that I was going through, I was trying to suppress and like not feel those emotions again because of the amount of work I felt like I've done on myself. Like I felt like I've been depressed before and I didn't want to feel those heavy emotions and I'm like, oh, I worked so hard. Why would I? I felt like it was probably selfish of me to just like keep going, and I use like turning to work as like a coping mechanism.
Right.
And like staying away from actually thinking and feeling. It made me reflect on the earlier times of grief because that was like a trickle effect to how I dealt with grief now. Like I keep just pushing it, which I'm trying to stay away
Clearly
from.
you're trying to go in a different direction. And there's an author, Thomas More, that talks about sometimes when depression shows up, we want to go and maybe we pull up a chair and say, wow, someone died. I think you should come sit next to me, and allow the depression and the sadness to sit there because they matter to you.
I felt like I minimized the amount of like what I was feeling because I was like, oh, she's just my sister's friend. She's like not really my friend, but she was my sister's best friend. And I kept telling myself the narrative that, oh, since she's just my sister's friend, like that has nothing to do with me. But in reality, she was like family and she was there through a lot.
Yeah, you're allowed to cry.
Thank you.
Can you tell me her first name?
Oh my goodness. Cat.
The reason why I ask names is these aren't like, oh, you've had a loss. Oh, you've had a loss. No, amazing people and pets that we cared about that walked on this earth. Like, I don't want Cat to ever be forgotten.
Oh,
As long as we remember them, they can't fully die.
yeah. And I feel like it comes out in little ways. Like I'm like, oh, this reminds me of her. I guess I kept telling myself it is beautiful to like keep moving on, and it taught me to like just treasure the people that you do have while you have them right now. But then at the same time, me telling myself that, I felt like I didn't allow myself to sit in the heartbreak and like feel. So that is like something I've been like trying to. I literally just like learned this about myself like this week because I was pushing it away for a while.
And I think we have to allow that. And we live in a world now that minimizes everything. I mean, you could name anything. Any of us could name any loss. And we'd be like, well, what about this in the world? And what about that? And what about this? And it's like, oh, okay, I guess this is small and it's not.
And also, to go off your point, I feel like we have to constantly we're like forced to keep going, and like there's kind of like this unspoken pressure that you have to just deal with your pain silently.
And that's a story that our society tells us that isn't true.
Period.
Period.
And I want you to think about this. I don't think we move on from them. I think we actually want to bring them with us. Don't move on from Kat. Bring her with you.
I love you, Kat. Sorry.
Bring her with you.
Yeah. It's really cute.
Everyone that's, I've had to say goodbye to, I hope become a little bit of me.
Do you feel a little bit of them in you?
A little bit, yeah. And once in a while, when I go, oh my gosh, this person would have loved where I am, I'm like, okay, look through my eyes, see all this. I'm thinking about you.
Wait, that's so cute. I love that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I feel like there is almost this, like, I don't know if culture is the right word, but I think that when something traumatic or hard happens to you, it's almost like the world keeps spinning, so you got to pick yourself up and keep moving. And it's kind of, it is hard, especially when you're in the moment where you are processing the loss and processing your own emotions and thoughts and how you feel about it, and like trying to heal yourself in whatever way that you can. It's hard to see the rest of the world keep moving and spinning, and like everyone else is okay when you're not okay.
I got a story. We talked about that I was going to be going to Australia soon. When I was in Australia last, this woman came up to me and said that she works in the little villages. And she says, in these little villages, when someone dies, that night, everyone in the village has to change something in their house or in their yard. They have to physically move something.
Oh, whoa.
And this woman said to them, why do you have to move something? And she said, the night someone dies, we move something because we want the family to wake up the next morning and see, now that your loved one has died, everything has changed. Isn't that what you were saying? We wake up and everything's changed, but the outer world is the same. There's traffic, everyone's rushing. It's like, do you not know what just happened?
Yeah, the sun exploded,
See,
literally.
right. I just had a gigantic earthquake. I don't know that I'm going to survive this death or this breakup or this divorce or this betrayal or this pet loss. And what? You're just going about your day like nothing happened. You know, grief must be witnessed. We need someone else to witness our grief. You know, it's interesting. They talk about in wartime how the most horrible thing we can do in war is, number one, kill someone, obviously. The second horrible thing is to put them in isolation. And think about it. When we're in grief, our friends can isolate us. We can isolate ourselves. It's the cruelest thing that can happen to us. So we need our grief witnessed by other people.
It's strange how some things your body forgets. It's almost like your mind forgets it, and then it like arises in certain times.
The body remembers.
If every grief that we've experienced is somehow stored in our bodies, how can we start to heal that so that we are not carrying all this, like these burdens?
One of the things is, you know, I think about a woman that I've worked with, Edith Eger, talks about take our traumatic wounds and work on them to become our cherished wounds. And so all those things we've been through, they're probably going to always be our wounds. They're always going to hurt. They're a little hole in our heart that when the wind blows, they're going to whistle a bit. But they don't have to be a weight that brings us down. They can also be this incredible experience that was really hard and heartbreaking and tough that propels us forward. And you know, I don't think our grief gets smaller. We have to become bigger. There's a saying about, you know, love and grief are a package deal. When you come to planet Earth, if you live, you're going to have bad things and good things.
Love and grief go hand in hand, and I do think that in life, like we will experience grief in many different ways, whether it's like the loss of a pet, a divorce, losing a job. How do you think we can prepare for the next time that something hard arises?
Well, first of all, it's what's called anticipatory grief. It's you're anticipating what's going to happen. And anticipatory grief is really normal.
Yeah.
So I always say you have two things to do is to feel that grief and don't go to the funeral early.
Oh.
Don't go to the funeral early. She's not dead. We're going to have to say goodbye to some people. And we have to have that grief when we know it's coming someday. And it's a reminder to show up and be present with one another while we're still here. And if you can sort of begin to laugh at that, like, oh, I'm trying to prepare, which kind of means I'm trying to control.
Yeah.
Part of the work, if you've gone through catastrophes, we're in self-protection mode. And I always try to move from self-protection to self-trust.
Wow. Wait, we need a moment for that.
Self-trust.
You're going to be there for yourself. You're going to get through it. No one's dying today. And when someone dies, you'll be able to get through it.
For the people who are going through, who are grieving really hard right now, and they have a friend that, like, say their grandparents died, how do you comfort them? What do you say and what do you not say?
One of the most important things is to not start any sentence with at least. At least they died quickly. At least they're not suffering anymore. At least you're not in that horrible relationship. When someone's in grief, don't at least them. And to sort of say, I don't know what this is like, but I'm here for you. I don't have brilliant words, but I'm here for you. You're not going to be alone in this death, in this breakup, in this betrayal. You're not going to be alone. I'm going to be there with you. I mean, I often say to people, I don't have the right words, but just know I love you when I'm here.
Yeah.
What else do we need to know but that I love you when I'm here?
A time where I felt like I was going through the motions of what grieving someone is was my first serious relationship. When I was processing this breakup, I felt like I was truly going through the 6 stages of grief. I felt like I had lost someone even though they were still alive. But I remember at first just completely being in denial and then feeling like I was so anxious and then feeling like I felt like through this anxiety, it was somehow like my body was catching up to my brain and I felt like I was genuinely like my body felt like I was going through the loss of a person, like they had actually passed away when they were alive and well. But I remember like feeling like I was having panic attacks and feeling like shortness of breath and restlessness and chest pains. And I felt like it was almost my body catching up to my mind. But at the same time, that I think that era of my life was so hard for me because I was already kind of going through mental health struggles on my own that were unaddressed and like I hadn't taken steps to heal or fix them or do anything about it. How does mental health and grief, when they intersect, when you feel like you're struggling mentally and already have this battle going on and then something happens on top of that, how can we help ourselves through that process?
I think life really can throw us some huge curves all at once sometimes.
Yeah.
And it is really tough. We can get through this. And one of the things I often say to my friends and people, when someone goes, I don't know if I can go through this, I'll go, I have hope for you. And I know that relationship ended in the physical form or they died in the physical form. And that's permanent. Your loss of hope is temporary. And until you can find your hope, I'm going to hold it for you. because I have hope for you.
Sweet.
Do you think that we're slowly becoming desensitized to these catastrophic events?
I think so. And I think we're not good with boundaries. You know, I would never just let 30 people rush into my bedroom in the morning and tell me what's going on. As I'm going to bed, I would never let a bunch of people rush in and talk to me about things that might even upset me. And yet I'm like, oh, could you get through your coffee before you go to your social media?
True.
Could you take a few minutes and allow yourself to go to bed without, it's like, ooh, got to work on those boundaries.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, we're letting everything rush in.
So we have this bit where we get questions from our audience, and we have 3 for you today.
Yay! I'm excited.
Hi, Nye. I'm Allie. I just kind of want to question how you deal with at least letting trauma come back to you. How do you continue with it, and how does it get a little better?
I think the thing that's interesting about that question, and I hear this a lot, is the grief keeps coming back, the trauma keeps coming back. And I think part of the problem is that we have the illusion that it's one and done. Oh, I did all my grief last week. What was it still here? And I think rather it's new layers of healing. I healed some grief and trauma this much. And then we think, oh, and now I'm going back. But I don't think it looks like that. It looks like I healed the grief and trauma this much. And then I'm going to regroup and get stronger. And then I'm stronger. And there's another level to heal. And so it's actually progress you're making. And it doesn't ever go away. It just isn't all that I am. Treat it like an old friend knocking at your door, asking for a little love and healing.
Well, that was really good.
It's a great question.
I feel like something that I struggled with loss and healing, both combined, is that whenever I start to cry or anything thinking about my dad who passed away 2 years ago, I feel like my healing efforts are just down the drain completely. And for example, if my mom starts crying or whatever, because we have taken different approaches on how to move forward in life, it feels like her crying is just affecting how I'm healing. I like to think about it the rate of like the progress and the rate of like from grief to healing. So I'm at a higher progress and rate at her. Like if I was to measure it from 1 to 10, I'm just higher. So I struggle with that.
We often easily take on our parents' grief. And it's hard to see our parents in grief. And even us making progress can feel like we're being disloyal to them, or like they're not grieving or healing as fast as we are. And everyone has a different relationship with the person who died. No two people grieve alike and heal alike, like siblings who have a parent that die. Like every sibling, I always say every sibling had a different mother, because we all know our mother's different. We know our father's different. And so it's easy to take on others' pain. There's amazing grief groups. There's amazing people who support people in grief. If, someone's died and they need support, Mom, there's like an online grief group, or there's a grief group down the street, or check about getting some help. I hate to see you in pain and would love for you to get help. And then you only get to say it once or twice. And then if they don't get help, it's not your business. It's their path.
I think it's tough in that situation because you want to be there for your family, but sometimes when you're grieving on your own,
You got to take care of yourself. And I remind people like exactly what you said, that people will go, trying to help my mom after dad died. And it's like, well, you help you. Like if you've got a friend whose dad died and you're fine and everything's good, wow, you've got a lot to really show up for your friend. But if you're grieving that person too, maybe you're not the helper.
Hi, Nailea. Hope you're doing well. My name is Gabby. And so my question is not as traditional as it is more personally tailored to your experience. I was wondering, from your position, how did you deal with grief in your past life and just generally your past version of yourself?
Oh, I love you so much. I was actually talking about this morning, but as I was like running through just what I wanted to talk to you about my personal experiences with grief, I was kind of going back into this place where I felt bad for myself when I was going through a really hard time and when I felt like I was at rock bottom. But then I remember I got some really good advice from someone close to me who said that I don't have to be a victim to my circumstances. I've gone through challenges in my life and I've dealt with moments where I felt like I was at rock bottom. But I think that at the end of the day, I wouldn't be who I am right now and I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for those experiences. So I think that that's what kind of keeps me looking back on any negative experience. It keeps it light unless it's not light, unless it's something that I need to process and is still there and I need to be gentle with and pull up a seat.
And that's your finding meaning. That's your turning pain into purpose.
Turning pain into purpose.
That's what I would say.
That's really cute.
I just so appreciated you sharing your experiences.
Thank you for making a safe space to share our experiences.
You know, there's times I've done podcasts where the person doesn't show up and they're just interviewing me. And I love how you both showed up.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for helping us feel comfortable and like bringing warmth to the room.
Well, that's what makes, these conversations and connections really good is when the person I'm talking to shows up as themselves. And, I've had some wonderful people show up as themselves.
How can normalizing these conversations about grief collectively bring us a sense of ease?
I think just the idea that you were willing to have this conversation makes it more normal. And I've been so lucky to have these conversations with people. And, look, there was a time, we're talking about how long I've been doing this. Decades ago, like, no one wanted to talk to me. No one wanted to talk about this. Yes, it's changed. And that's, and every little conversation makes the next one easier for us. So we're having it. Someone listening and watching is going to go have one. And then someone else is going to go have one. And we changed everything by a little conversation.
We know that a lot of these questions and a lot of the stuff we discussed today probably didn't answer questions for everyone. We hope that this allows people to feel more comfortable.
Yeah, we're starting a conversation.
If you guys would like to check out David's book, Finding Meaning, The Sixth Stage of Grief, you can find it linked down below.
And you can check out grief.com for more information on David, more resources to help. David, thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Yeah.